one of the tallest leaders of the BJP and a very, very important part of government here in New Delhi, a man Mr. Modi relies on a lot, and which is why he's a part of decision making of many panels in this government. A very special guest today, the Law and the Telecom Minister of Mr. Modi's government, Ravi Shankar Prasad, is my guest on the Roadmap for Revival today. Thanks a lot for being with us. You were a voice of the BJP.
I am not that big as you made me out to be.
Well, let that decision rest with the rest of us. Now that you're in governance, there are two questions that come from it. How big is the challenge and how deep is the mess? Is it deeper than you had imagined it to be? And the question also is there a huge difference in making a tall promise of Achhe Din than really delivering it?
First of all, yes, it is a very messy mess. The first thing I would like to say. We knew that the governance had left a trail of devastations, but it would be so bad I never expected. But yes, we are looking with hope. And just to tell you one thing, since you said, you'll be very happy to know that Shri Modi is taking the presentation from all the departments.
That's right.
The Prime Minister of India gave full 6.5 hours on telecom, on IT and post departments.
That's right.
I think that by itself is an indication as to how my secretaries were surprised. I was sitting with them. He was asking so searching questions with his vast experience of governance. It was a pleasure working with him and knowing a lot of things. So I think this is an indication as to how much detail the PM of India is going into.
I will begin with talking about telecom because that's a crucial sector of the Indian economy that you handle. Do you believe the regulatory framework in telecom is more or less settled? Do you believe, as far as regulatory frameworks are concerned, telecom is on an autopilot, or do you believe the regulatory architecture needs to be changed a little more?
Well, I would reply to your query in a different way. I have set 3 priorities for me. First and foremost, you said broadband highway.
That's right.
The sheet anchor of Modi government. Modi is a tech-savvy man.
True.
And he is very keen that IT, broadband, optical fiber network must reach every village of India.
That's right.
And the first thing I have decided is to declare that 50,000 gram panchayat shall be linked this year, 1 lakh next year, 1 lakh next year. Okay. I am pursuing it very, very effectively.
That's right.
The second thing is the revival of these two, BSNL, MTNL. I am sorry to say that the way things were handled about them leaves much to be desired. And the third is this whole issue of spectrum sharing, spectrum trading, spectrum release. These are issues. You know, my take is very clear. India's mobile revolution must be supplemented by the broadband revolution.
Fair enough. IT revolution. Yes. The reason why I want to ask you this question is that spectrum sharing, spectrum pricing, some of those decisions were taken by your predecessor, Mr. Sibal. Do you believe that requires a certain overhaul, or is that something that's on autopilot? Decisions have been taken on that front at least.
Some have been taken, some require to be taken.
Which one would those be?
I will not like to spell because I am going into detail into these things.
That's right.
I can only say that I have a lot of legacy issues, if I can put it that way.
That's right.
And I'm making an understatement in my capacity as the Minister for Telecom. Those legacy issues have to be settled. And the one thing I have told all the people, including my department, that now decisions will be taken on merits. Right. And let me say it very clearly and categorically. Days of lobbying and influence peddling is over. I would be I will be frank and fair to all, but the government will take decisions.
That's a very important point you're making, and that brings me to my next question. The question on CAG is that it has written to the DOT asking for Rel Jio's broadband spectrum to be taken away. There are two broad allegations. They are saying that A, it bid through a front company, which was Infotel, and B, the DOT did not specify that internet service providers will be able to offer voice telephony, which is why they are asking for that spectrum to be cancelled. What is your government's position on that?
I'll have to look into it. If AG has sent, the reply will go.
Right.
But the matter requires deeper, whether all the facts were disclosed to them or not. Frankly, I haven't looked into this issue. Because larger issues are still, I have taken nearly 25 hours of presentation on telecom and IT and electronics.
Right.
But surely I'll look at one thing I would like to highlight, and I'm very keen that your viewers need to know about it. I'm pushing electronic manufacturing in a very big way.
I want to go back to the CAG question for just a while now, because when you were in opposition, unlike the previous government which scorned at CAG, which ridiculed its allegations, you respected its views. For whatever it's worth, it is the top auditor, it raises concerns. And one of the concerns, I'm going to go back to Rel Jio, is that they have said Infotel was a company with a net worth of 2.5 crore rupees. It bid for spectrum over 12,800 crore rupees. It was acquired hours after the auction closed for broadband spectrum by Rel Jio. These are issues which is why it wants the spectrum to be cancelled. As a lawyer, as the telecom minister, and as somebody who has respected CAG's views in the past, do you think this requires a relook?
First of all, CAG is an authority we all respect.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't commit a wrong, CAG will not point a fingers at you.
Right.
But if you commit a wrong, they are entitled to point a fingers at you. I can only tell you, since you have flagged this issue to you, I will look into it myself and see what wrongs are there, what kind of reply has been given. I can understand this also appears to be a legacy problem.
That's right. Exactly. It's a legacy problem because the DOT turns around and says they paid 1658 crore rupees. They were shifted from internet service providers to voice telephony. It distorts the, prima facie, do you think it looks like a case of distorting the level playing field?
Therefore, I will look into it. I will surely look into it and whatever appropriate follow-up action. But let me go detail into it since we have flagged the issue. But the larger issue,
I understand.
The respect of my government for the CAG is there, will remain there.
Fair point. Just a quick question on MTNL and BSNL. I know Mr. Modi doesn't like privatization. He says that PSUs can be turned around. Why privatize them? As far as BSNL and MTNL is concerned, many attempts have been made in the past. Why are you placing your bets on these two companies?
Because they are huge companies, huge assets, biggest connectivity, people's trust in them. Therefore, we have to ensure. You know, my view is very clear, Supriya. Private players can always do well only and only if there is a quasi-government player doing equally well.
Yeah, that's true.
That is my very clear understanding. And I've been telling them, if Air India will be fine, private airlines will be fine either, you know. But yes, there are big assets of the country, so many people are working, so many connectivity is there, and they work in the rural areas. You asked me a question. Yes, a lot of improvement is needed. But I can tell you, the manner in which they have been handled in the past also leaves much to be desired.
I want to ask you a question specifically on the rail fare hike. The last time UPA hiked fares by 20%, Mr. Modi wrote a letter saying this is anti-farmer, anti-people. There is obviously an economic rationale for this, and which is what your government has explained. But why is it that views change with where you sit, whether it's in treasury benches or it's in opposition? Do you agree with me?
No, I must clarify. I'm happy you have asked me this question. For the last so many years, have they done it? A. When you impose a hike, you also resultantly lead to improvement. In this particular case, we have not done anything. The hike was announced on the floor of the House in the interim budget.
You've simply implemented it.
Then what they said, the new government will do. After election results, when the officers came, Mr. Karge said, sorry, don't do it. This is, railway needs support for improvement of safety, for railway lines, for new infrastructure. I think once people will realize that because of this rise, they are getting more facilities and improvement, surely they will trust into it.
If it was such a prudent economic decision that needed to be taken, and most stakeholders believe it was the right decision, barring of course the petty politics that comes into it, why then the partial rollback? Because I'll tell you what it has said. It has sent a signal that a government that was known to be decisive, a government that was known to be strong, a government that could not be bulldozed into changing a decision, has done a partial rollback. Do you think some kind of a damage has been done?
It is a very limited rollback.
But it is a rollback.
Very limited. You must understand. The government also has to be sensitive. You must understand. A government which is firm, a government which is sensitive, is a good amalgamate of good governance in a democracy. That's what our government is. If the government saw, if the PM saw that there is some point in what commuters are saying in Mumbai and other places, let's take a call on that.
Your Prime Minister has also said, and you voiced this opinion on various interviews, that bitter pill needs to be taken for better days ahead. A lot of us are now curious what the bitter pill will be and which sectors will these be in. And the question also is that a decisive mandate like the one that you got, a resounding victory for Mr. Modi, does that give you the elbow room to take the tough decisions?
Well, whatever is needed for the country will be taken. But bitter for better days is also a phrase. Okay, you should not overstretch it.
Right.
Our government is equally sensitive. But yes, as I said at the very outset, we never knew that the mess was so deep-rooted.
When you say bitter pill, or when you say that tough measures need to be taken, will that be market linking of a lot of fuel prices? Will that mean higher prices for certain commodities, say like a diesel and LPG and kerosene? Because those are huge legacy messes, if I may use your word. That's a huge legacy mess. Fertilizer subsidy. Why should the government bear so much burden when the exchequer is as it is under such constraint?
Well, I can see that subsidy issue is an issue which we have to address.
Right.
But don't forget one thing, Supriya, of Mr. Modi's first declaration: my government will be for the poor.
Yeah, that's
Therefore, at times, for the sake of fertilizer subsidy, you have to help out your farmers, the poor people. Kerosene subsidy for the poor people. Yes, the pilferage and manipulation and the misappropriation needs to be checked.
right.
We have to have a mechanism for that.
Why did the government not bite the bullet on gas pricing? Did it become too politically volatile?
No. What I can understand is, it is again a part of legacy. You know that. A decision was taken, was
That's
in public domain.
Yes.
The previous government was speaking in different voices. One minister writing it must be implemented, other minister publicly opposing. You have seen that.
That's right.
That spectacle as well. Now, when the model code of conduct came, the Prime Minister has taken a call. Let us have a relook at the whole issue. That's how the mandate is. And nothing wrong about it. If there is a fair look at the whole issue, we understand the issue of gas pricing and the whole claim and counterclaim. But what is the harm if in a very fair manner, the whole issue is considered objectively?
There are two ways to look at this, and I'm going to voice the first way first. It's Mr. Modi's message. Because the stakes are so high in gas pricing, some of the biggest corporates are involved. It's his message to India Inc. that I and my government will not be bulldozed into taking a decision.
You're right. You're right. In fact, under the leadership of Mr. Narendra Modi, and we are very proud of his leadership, all of us are giving this message. I just told you.
Right.
I told the players that days of lobbyings are over. No prejudice against anyone, no favor in favor of anyone.
Right. Right.
On merits, we shall take a decision. And please help us take a decision, because if the rules of the games are clear, Supriya, then they also know where they stand.
Absolutely. And I think that's a message that's one way of reading the gas price decision. The other way of reading it is that the government is very concerned about inflation. The government wants to contain prices, and gas price hike would have been very inflationary in nature. It also brings me to my question that inherently speaking, the Rangarajan formula would have doubled gas prices. It would have had an impact on fertilizer, on power, or on everything else. Do you believe, A, the Rangarajan formula is inherently flawed and needs to be reviewed completely?
It will not be appropriate for me as a senior minister to comment upon that formula when the entire matter is supposed to be.
But doubling of gas prices, do you think India is ready for it?
No. What I am simply saying, again, that will be hypothetical.
Right.
Inflation aspect has to be taken into account. But you know, this government, the past government, has a method of doing things, as if even things which could have been straightened up were sought to be made messy.
So you do not think that the status quo on gas prices has sent out a negative signal to the investor community?
No, not the least. I can tell you so many new positive developments are coming. Mr. Chambers met me the day before yesterday.
That's right.
I requested him, a very eminent man of the world, and Cisco's chief.
Right.
And he has become convinced of the need to come in electronic manufacturing.
Let me then talk to the other hat, and that's of course the law minister's hat. When Mr. Modi came to power, and when your government got the majority that it did, there is huge investor upside to investing in India. People are very excited. The one thing that they all believe will happen is rollback of the retrospective tax. That did a lot of damage. There is no denying that. Even the UPA felt it did a lot of damage, which is why they were trying to settle the matter with Vodafone. Let's not speak about a company-specific issue, but the issue at large. It is one single legislation that stalled investments in one go. Is it fair to presume it's going to go in this budget?
First of all, that is, I cannot make the comment. Except to tell you, in our manifesto, we have spoken very strongly against it.
That's right.
Now, what shall be the rationale, how it will be stated? Let the Minister for Finance, Arun Jaitley, our senior leader, take care of that.
That's right.
But yes, 3 mantras I can reiterate here. Fiscal stability, tax assurance,
That's right.
policy firmness are important for investment.
I'll tell you, sir, why this has done a damage. Because this has raised questions on the credibility and the integrity of the government, this retrospective tax. It makes you feel, I'm working here in India, you never know what they change 2 years later. So, which is why I'm asking you that if this were to go, what are the legal challenges to retrospective tax being withdrawn?
No, first of all would be...
And I'm now speaking to you in your capacity as law minister.
First of all, there is a Supreme Court judgment.
Right.
And law can be changed if the government elects to. But what is larger is, I will not go to Vodafone specific.
That's
the
right.
larger issue is to convey a firm message to the investor community that India's the fiscal policy, the economic policy, and the tax regime all are fairly stable.
And predictable.
And predictable, you are very right.
Right.
I think that message is, and right from day one when I took office as the law minister, I have been saying that.
Right.
Two initiatives I have taken for investor-friendly initiative, I need to tell you. First, I have told the Law Commission to examine in consultation with the trade bodies and also examine the other jurisdiction in other countries. Can we remove so many clearances while setting up a project?
Right.
Can we have a provision of self-certification in case of many compliances?
True, true.
Mandatory compliance must be followed. Some can be removed altogether or other mechanism can be formed. And I have asked him to give me a report on a very priority basis.
True.
The second issue, Supriya, which I have initiated is, large number of Indian and foreign companies have to suffer uncalled for criminal litigation.
That's right.
Because of motivated complaints.
True.
Which are basically contractual in nature. And they are cloaked as breach of trust or fraud, etc.
True.
And then the processes are served, etc. with attendant consequences. I have told the Law Commission to please examine, can we have a proper alternative forum wherein disputes, which are contractual disputes per se,
right,
are presented.
But how do you appreciate the fact that here you are trying to settle the matter with Vodafone and there they go and invoke an arbitration, the last day comes, you have to appoint an arbitrator as well. At one level, it's also not right on the part of Vodafone to threaten the government with arbitration.
I don't think it would be appropriate for you to make this whole debate Vodafone-centric. I know you have legitimate concerns, but if they have gone, we'll have to follow the course.
True.
But if we ultimately find a way out of it, surely. And one of the reasons as to why I want to emphasize is that I am trying my best to ease India's arbitration laws,
right,
so that decisions are quick. I am very keen that India becomes a hub of international arbitration. I have also asked the Law Commission to expedite the report on it. I have also asked them to give me a report quickly as to how many old laws are required to be weeded out.
That's right.
The Secretary Law has written to all the Secretaries Government of India, please give me a list of all those laws which are required to be struck down, removed from the statute book.
Land Acquisition Act and the Companies Act review. Some people would say that both these things were passed in Parliament with the BJP in tow. Why is it that you're looking at clinically amending some of the legislation that UPA brought in?
I must tell you, we had flagged our concern to Mr. Jairam Ramesh.
Even then, yes.
Mr. Jairam Ramesh came right in my chamber where we are talking. And we talked for 4 hours. And I said only, please, ye kya kar rahe ho? At least give a leeway for highways, for power transmission to go.
This is going to make business untenable.
And you know, what is worrying me, it creates a huge bureaucracy in the process of consultation. I am all for giving good compensation to farmers who are ousted. I am all for making them a stakeholder in the process of new creation and manufacturing.
Right.
But I think development and compensation both should go hand in hand. Again, the corporate community will have to understand one thing, that the farmers who love their land needs to be paid more. They must be made a stakeholder in the creation which they create consequent upon. But the process needs to be eased out.
If you speak to bureaucrats in this government, they're suddenly excited. They're suddenly very happy to be working with this government because they are being empowered even by Mr. Modi. He's been meeting secretaries. There's a directive from the PMO to write straight to the ministers. You are a grassroots politician. You've been a part of democratic elections for a long time now. In your sense, do you believe ministers are a little less relevant in Mr. Modi's government? I'm not talking about a person like you because you're very important, but the rest of the jing bang, if I may, because the secretaries can bypass their ministers, can't they?
First of all, you are being very unfair to Mr. Modi. He trusts his minister too much. By one stroke, he removed more than 80 group of ministers.
That's right, yes.
And told the ministers to learn to take decisions. Okay? Bureaucrats are important. Ultimately, civil servants who implement things. And Mr. Modi is very particular on implementation.
Right, right.
Kitna kaam hua, target, time frame, monitoring. These are issues of his governance. Therefore, why civil servant is recited, at least then, and many of them are very good officers.
True.
Brilliant officers, good executors, surely will work as a team. but never labor this misconception that Mr. Modi will bypass his ministers.
Just to come back to the inclusion of a technocrat, the markets were very excited that there will be some technocrats in this government. That hasn't happened. There's an imminent expansion that's right around the corner. Will we see the inclusion of a technocrat in Mr. Modi's government?
You know, this is entirely for the Prime Minister who will come
Sure.
and who will not. But my take is different. Those who work so hard to bring the party here, there is a presumption that they can't govern. Okay? Technocrats should be there in advisory capacity, most welcome.
Right.
And even those who have been activists, Mr. Gadkari has so much experience of technology, others are there. There are doctors and all this.
Sure.
I'm a lawyer.
That's
in
right.
that sense, I'm also a technocrat. So is Mr. Jaitley are. But we are activists from the ground for the last more than 35, 40 years.
Right.
Therefore, this whole take that only technocrats can govern the country is not a very comfortable situation, as if we who are in politics, who work hard, who have a record of governance, who are experienced, are not capable.
He's also speaking about strengthening the center-state ties a lot. He's talking about, I mean, even before he became Prime Minister, he said the PM should be ahead of the team that also has CMs. He's talking about center-state relations. You know the reality of Indian politics. Given the different political ideologies in center and state, do you think that's realistically possible?
It all depends upon the leader, the Prime Minister. And he told in the Parliament that I have been a Chief Minister for 14 years. I know what happens when you have a favourable government in Delhi and what problems ensue if you have an unfavourable government.
Right.
That political mindset I am willing to change. And I think that is a very firm message. And the second thing which he has said, a party which does not have even a single member in the Parliament, he will also take their concerns on board. I think Mr. Modi is really changing the ground rule of India's politics. I think you need to trust him because he is very clear that unless the entire India develops, India will not develop. Of late, his insistence upon Eastern India, Northeastern India,
That's right.
they must come on par with the Western India. I think these are very refreshing thoughts and we are going to implement that.
We do hope some of that implementation happens because if that happens, India's face will change. Two quick last questions. Your finance minister has gone headlong into GST. It's a very, very ambitious tax reform that has been stalled due to petty political concerns. How is it that suddenly the BJP ruled states are fine with the GST and now the Congress ones are creating an issue? How hopeful are you of a breakthrough on GST?
No. Legitimate state interest ought to have been addressed. If Gujarat has a claim, you don't pay, you create problem, you are creating problem.
Right.
Therefore, if you have a clear mind and the ground rules are very clear, yes, country needs GST for quick disposal of tax considerations. Tax is important. A GST will help unify India as far as taxing regime is concerned.
I want you now to remove that hat and wear your BJP's hat. That's something where your heart belongs to. It's an imminent ascent of Mr. Amit Shah. He's all set to become the president of the party. What happened to concerns that the Prime Minister and the President cannot be from the same state? Is this in some sense, all pun intended, a modification of the Saffron Brigade?
No, I think whatever the decision is taken by Mr. Amit Shah will be a welcome development.
Right.
But don't you see his abilities? A man comes, gives a new life to moribund BJP in Uttar Pradesh. And BJP
Gets you
won
70 plus seats.
73 out of 80.
Right.
In a short span of hardly 6-7 months. That is unique. And let me tell you, Amit Bhai and we have been working together in Youth Wing from early 90s. When I was the National Vice President, he was the National Treasurer.
Right.
He is a unique organizer, a man of very clear political thought, and will surely, if he becomes the president, will give a new life into the BJP. Who is from UP, who is from Gujarat, I don't think it's that important. Even technically speaking, Mr. Modi ji is now an MP from Kashi, isn't it?
That's right. He's as I claim stake because I'm from UP.
You are from UP.
Yes, so he's a UP wala. Mr. Shah has ongoing and pending cases against him. Will it be right for the BJP to make him president at this stage?
Well, now here I will say I will wear my lawyer's hat.
Right.
Because I had examined his cases.
True.
It is a textbook case of false implication. He's suffering a trial. He has suffered the legal process. The Supreme Court denied him bail for 1 year.
That's right.
The Supreme Court asked him to stay out of Gujarat for 1 year. And let me tell you, I cannot make any further comment being a law minister.
Right.
But one could have thought a little differently about many orders passed, but he complied with all.
Right.
He is undergoing trial. But see Mr. Amit Shah, not from the legacy issue of Congress vexatious prosecution against him. By the way, how many cases Congress tried to foist upon Mr. Modi?
Many.
You remember something like Snoop Gate?
That's
Where
right.
is that, by the way?
I don't know. I thought they were trying to set up a committee also, which they had a rethink on later. Okay, away from all of this, and let me just go back in time 10 years ago. You were Mr. Vajpayee's blue-eyed boy, so to say. Very, very, he was inherently fond of you. You're somebody who's very close to the new Prime Minister, Mr. Modi. How different are the two men as far as governance at the top is concerned?
Well, Vajpayee was a towering leader. He had seen me as a kid, to be very honest to you.
Right.
And he gave me his affection, but also a hard taskmaster. But Mr. Modi's style is different. You know, first of all, there is no compulsion of coalition. You must understand that.
That's right.
And secondly, with Mr. Modi, his 14 years record of governance experience as the Chief Minister, the ground level, becomes very evident when he is formulating policies for the country. Therefore, India of 2014 is not the India of 2098-99.
That's right.
But yes, I am singularly honored that I had the privilege to work in both the governments.
You're also honored to be very, very important as far as New Delhi is concerned. Thanks a lot for speaking to us, sir.
Thank you, Supriya.
Pleasure.
Nice. Pleasure is mine.